I'll be honest. I thought that Andy Warhol just kind of painted soup for soup's sake, but underneath all that is like the we live in a society stuff like that. Just talking about like modern like consumerism and stuff. We don't really have the resources to be in the state that we live in. Like, we're kind of in like a second Gilded Age when it comes to money and spending. And I think that Warhol was commenting on that during his time period. I don't know. Yeah.
I think that I very much agree. I don't think he did that intentionally, because a lot of what I read is just kind of, oh, he just did whatever he wanted, and people were like, oh my goodness, soup, incredible, right? So, like, I don't think a lot of those critiques that he made in his art were necessarily his intention. It kind of just came off like he did what he wanted. I'm sure he was aware of the impact he had, but I think that that was only a byproduct of what he had intended. And yeah, that's what it
Alright, yeah, I kind of agree with you, because it talked about how his upbringing was like pretty bad. Like, he was poor and his parents both died like when he was pretty young. So when he talked about all this like consumerism and commercialism, it actually kind of ended up helping him.
What? I thought it said that he was fine. It says that he's a square citizen.
Well, no, it's just saying
his upbringing, like when he was raised.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, so honestly, like, he should be pretty thankful for it. So I kind of agree with Lucas today. It wasn't necessarily critiquing it, he was kind of just showcasing it.
And I think that is kind of art in its purest form, right? And it extends past just, you know, physical, like paintings and art. It's up to the interpretation of the audience and of the viewer. And so it extends to, I think, all art forms, that the artist can have a totally different meaning for their painting than you interpret. And it doesn't make what you interpret wrong. It's just different. And I think that reflects a lot about, like, just how we are as people.
Yeah. I think another, like, add on to that, he wasn't like some crazy starving artist sort of deal. Like, he wasn't an outlier in any sense. He was just a normal dude who painted the soup. And that is kind of what made his cynical and satirical critiques of society relevant. That's what made him him. That he was just a normal dude, and then he became what we all recognize today.
And what's all the more ironic is he became so famous in the genre that he was critiquing for critiquing the genre. So there's like multiple levels to that. That it's like he was making fun of the genre, and the people in the genre were like, oh, he's making fun of us, I guess he's the best now. And so that's just kind of how that ended up.
Yeah. I don't know.
You got it, Tom.
Alright, I guess the questions, the first one is ask about the exigence, and I think the exigence is basically that people don't really understand, kind of like Charles was saying, people really only see the surface level of his art, and this is kind of just to showcase the many different perspectives and, you know, whatnot that went into creating the art.
It feels like Mr. Peter, the author, was kind of like, yo, there's these Whitney showcases, and Warhol's here, but I don't think people realize how big of an impact he had on society, not just at the overall level, but at the individual level. And so he illustrates how he views people undervalue Warhol by giving his own personal experiences with him and talking about how during his own personal upbringing, he kind of imprinted him, like, quote, like a baby duck. So it, I think, talks about, he just wants to illustrate the true extent of Warhol's impact on society.
It to add on to what Tom said, like people only seeing the surface image of something, I think that that's a byproduct of the state of intelligence in our society. Not to be like, oh, 1% people are smarter than other people. It's not like that. Like in an age where knowledge and information is so accessible, it's easy for people to develop their own niche and like cherry pick what they want to see as the truth, and that leads to polarizing opinions, that leads to how society is today. And that's a thing. That's a thing why he wrote the thing, because that's what Andy Warhol's whole deal was. He was critiquing society, and not just art, but also like the state of his reality and ecosystem.
I want to add on to that. The author describes Warhol, not to use his direct words, but he almost describes him as like a uniting force, because he says, love him or hate him, he's not escapable. And so I think that could be looked at many ways, especially without context, but I think he's saying it mostly to say that everyone is impacted by Andy Warhol in some way. Everyone has experienced his art in some way. And so despite what you believe in, how you, like what you're, I already said that, just despite anything that makes you different from other people, he's kind of this level playing field that you can interpret his art no matter who you are, where you're from, what you believe in, and none of that is important. He's kind of a uniting force whether you love him or hate him. Okay. Guess we'll go down the questions. So the second part for the question is who the audience is. I think it's just, people who, well, I guess you can make an argument for that it's society, but I think it's more about the people who, are just interested in art, and people that attended the Whitney showcases, and people that value this Peter guy's opinion. So I think it's just kind of.
I thought it was kind of the opposite.
What do you mean?
Like, I think it's for the people who just saw the soup as the soup, or like the banana as the banana. It's for people who only see the superficial stuff. Just because, like, the average Joe doesn't know that there are meanings to art most of the time. Like, of course there are meanings to art, and most people do know that. Like, it's not always very obvious. Like, with most abstract art, which I think pop art is like a level of abstraction, it is very weird to see that, like see an image of, what is this? This is random scribbles, and then hear like, oh no, this is a statement of the chaotic society or chaotic state of, I don't know, like airport TSA or something. Like, you can't see that without knowing what the artist went through painting that. I don't know.
And I think that also adds on to the fact that art of any kind is mainly up to the interpretation of the person experiencing it. Because like you said, you wouldn't have gotten the same thing that the artist did if you didn't experience the same thing that the artist did.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what I think makes art so versatile, is that it's up to the interpretation of the audience, and I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, you can't start watching a movie from the middle and not be confused.
I feel like this is one of the things where it's gonna have like
Should I keep
main
going,
audience
or do you
that
want me
they're
to plug it in?
aiming for, but, like, deep down inside. Like, you can look at his art and be like, wow, that's art, that's
Okay.